So if you want to access anything in my presentation, this is the URL that you'll need in order to access the entire presentation. I will repeat this URL again at the very end of the presentation. That way, if you're like, wow, I missed out on a golden ticket opportunity, I will swing back to this later. Next week, the session that you're experiencing right now is going to be available in video form on this website. Please note that every single capital letter that you see on the screen must be a capital letter when you type that URL into the Omnibar to search for the website. If anything that is capitalized is not capitalized, you'll get an error message. So be very careful of the capitals and the lowercase letters. It must say exactly what it says there. Again, my name is Melissa Culver. I am an instructional technology coach serving in the Clovis North area. I serve the 5 elementary schools that feed into Clovis North. For contact purposes, if you need to email me later, or if you want to access my website or my YouTube channel, you'll find my URL, my website located right there. The outline for today's presentation is located right here. I'll let you pause and read that, and then I'll move on. Approximately 3 different times during my presentation, I'm going to provide you with a video that you can watch later or you can share with your students. In the course of this 1-hour presentation, there's no way I can tackle all the information that I want to share with you. So when this presentation is finished, you can go back in and use those tutorial pieces in order to provide further foundation for your understanding. This particular video right here is going to walk step by step through the process of archiving any of your old classrooms for you, and then walking you step by step through the process of building that new classroom for this year, and then answering just a few questions along the way. You can either type in the YouTube link that you see in the turquoise box. Your other option is going straight to my YouTube channel, and if you do a Google search for Melissa Culver YouTube, I'm the first search that pops up. I don't pay to be first. There's probably 52 Melissa Culvers in the world. I'm just the only one on YouTube that's posting the most. And so I pop up at the top. I'm easy to find. And then you can search through and then look specifically for Google Classroom start of year. And then you'll find that tutorial that's going to walk step by step through the process. So let's pretend that you're brand new to Google Classroom, or you were brand new to Google Classroom in April and you can't remember exactly how to start that process. Step number 1, you're going to head to classroom.google.com. Your other option is that inside any Google products, you can choose what we affectionately call the waffle. So on that left-hand side in that highlighted region next to my face, you see how I've selected that 9-box cluster. We call that the waffle. If you choose the waffle, then a drop-down menu will appear. Inside that drop-down menu, you will find Classroom. Those are 2 different ways that you can get to Google Classroom. Once you are inside Google Classroom, over on that right-hand side of an existing Google Classroom that you already have, you're going to choose those 3 dots. I call it a skinny snowman. And once you click on those 3 dots, then a small box will appear that will give you options. Let me do a quick litmus test. Thumbs up if my speed is okay. Thumb down if I'm going way too fast and I'm losing you. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, just wanted to make sure. When this pop-up box appears after you have clicked on the skinny snowman, you have a few options to choose from. In my opinion, archiving is a good strategy at the beginning of every year. If you want to hold on to it, that's totally fine. You don't have to archive it, but I will recommend for your new students this year that you start fresh with a brand new classroom. Archiving it just kind of scoots it out of the way. It doesn't remove it permanently. You will have access to those resources later, so you can recycle those old classes, those old lessons that you previously taught. It's just not going to clutter that space visually in front of you. It's going to get tucked away to the side. The reason why I highly recommend a brand new classroom every single year is that some of the features that Google has released that are brand new, That functionality does not always play nicely with those older classrooms. So you lose out on those new resources, tools, tips, strategies, etc. if you're using an old classroom. You also have to go through the process of deleting every single assignment and purging all of those students. In my opinion, that's not an efficient use of time and space. Just start brand new. That's my recommendation. When you officially design a new classroom, you're going to choose the plus symbol on the top right. When you choose the plus symbol on the top right, it's going to give you two options. Let's pretend that I wanted to design a classroom. Let's pretend that somebody else designed a classroom, and then I, as an adult, were to join that classroom. Maybe it's adult teacher-oriented technology professional development, and I'm learning from another teacher. I can join a teacher's classroom. Or if your site administrator chooses to design a Google Classroom for all of the teachers on that campus to share PDFs, resources, videos, those sorts of things, adults can join a Google Classroom, and you would join a Google Classroom in that situation. But specifically, we're coming from the standpoint that we're all teacher professionals and we want students to join our classroom. In order to begin that process, you, the teacher, need to create a classroom. So from that drop-down menu, for this scenario, you're going to create a class. When you create that class, you're going to fill in some details. What is the name of that class? You are the author of the name of that class. It can be your name. It can be whatever it is that you're teaching. If you're teaching social science or PE or art or a foreign language, then you can include that in there. And then maybe in parentheses at the end or brackets, you're going to say that it's period 1, period 2, period 3. Or if you're a combo teacher, it might be Culver grade 2, or it could be Culver grade 3. My suggestion to you at the very, very end of whatever the title is, it might be a good idea to include the year as well. Because after you archive this year's class, next year's class, the following year's class, how are you going to know what lessons you might want to reuse when you're searching through those old classrooms? So in my opinion, I have found that it's helpful to tuck the year into the end of the title just for my own organizational purposes. In the next step of setting up that classroom, after you have created whatever that title is, I don't go through the process in my tutorial of explaining how to change the theme right here. I wasn't sure that I'd have enough time to do that. So you have the ability to change this image right here if you want to. If you want it to be a picture of your dog, or if you want it to be the picture of the school, things of that nature. I didn't tuck that into my training. Back to that security issue. My pink arrow is pointing to the gear on the top right. This is where you determine what level of communication the students have access to in the context of your Google Classroom experience. Do they have permission in the stream to carry on long-winded conversations about any topic they want? Sometimes I have found in the past that children don't always make wise decisions in that space. And they use vocabulary terms and ideas that are just not acceptable. I personally don't want the liability of whatever conversations they might have together with one another at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I personally turn that off. If you have amazing strategies for organizing your classroom and your blessings are fully capable of behaving in a mature fashion, that's up to you. You're the professional. You're the one organizing your classroom. I, on the other hand, always shut this off. That's just the way that I work. So in the gear, I scoot down to what can happen in the stream, and I choose that only teachers can post or comment in that space. Now, if you want to, maybe from 12 to 2 every day, you're going to turn it on, and then the children know that during that space that they can provide feedback, interact with one another, ask questions, those sorts of things. You do have the power of deleting things that are inappropriate or things that just are not on topic. They're not perfect for your educational experience. You can go in and delete them. It's up to you. Whatever works for you, You do you. Once you have made all of those selections, you've provided the title, the section, the course, anything that you think is important, and then you've altered any of that security protocol in that sharing space, go ahead and click the Save button, and then any of your recommendations will be saved at that point. Now let's move on to what it looks like to build a new assignment. Up at the very top of that Google Classroom space that you just created, there are 4 tabs, 4 areas. We have Stream, Classwork, People, and Grades. You can make a new assignment in Classwork. You cannot make it in Stream. If you're frantically looking all over the place and you're discouraged that you can't find the Create button, it's because you're not over in that Classwork space. So please click on the Classwork space in order to locate the Create button. And there's more than one thing that you can create. On my next slide, I show you that drop-down menu that gives you the power to choose what types of resources you can create. The next portion of this tutorial is going to show specifically an assignment. I will highlight reused post, but for the sake of time, I am not going to highlight those inner 3 because it's just Google Classroom basics for this training session. So I'm going to walk through all the nuances of what it looks like to create an assignment. At some point, I'll swing over to that reused post area. When you are creating an assignment, you have the ability to create one assignment, but post it to multiple classrooms at one time. If you teach first, second, third, fourth period, and it's pretty much the same thing, and you want to give all of those students the exact same assignment, in the click of a few buttons, every single child can have access to all of that very easily. Or if you have a collaborative nature on your school site, and each 5th grade teacher obviously has their own classroom, but maybe you're co-collaborating together and one teacher posts all the math assignments, one teacher posts all the social studies assignments. If that's the way you have designed your collaborative experience, then as long as you have permission from those other teachers to share in that space, you can easily share one singular assignment in more than one space. Additionally, if you're a combo teacher, but you want both 2nd and 3rd grade to receive exactly the same assignment, you don't have to create that assignment from scratch. You can actually go live and then post that singular assignment in those 2 spaces at the same time. Immediately to the right of the title of the classroom, you have access to the students. You can provide differentiated instruction inside Google Classroom. You can post specific or strategic lessons or assignments to only certain students. Maybe you have a combo class, but you want everyone in the same Google Classroom. You can hand select the 2nd graders for this assignment, and then you can hand select the 3rd graders for this other assignment. If that's the way that you want to organize your combo class, then that's the way that you can do that. Or if you have students with a 504, SST, or an IEP, and you need to provide them with modifications, shortened assignments, different assignments altogether, you have the luxury and the power of going in and only giving specific students certain assignments. You don't always have to give the entire class every single assignment. You get to make those choices as the teacher. How do you do that? Well, when you click right there where it says all students, a drop-down menu will appear with the names of every single student, and then you just click those check marks if you want to remove the assignment from those specific students. It's efficient, timely, it works nice. Right here, this is going to be the title of the assignment. If it's a Flipgrid assignment, if it's an essay, if it's a math assignment, then you're going to put the title of that assignment in that space right there. Underneath that region, you're going to have instructions. So allow the students to fully understand what you expect of them in the assignment in this area. Provide them clarifying feedback, things of that nature. In this region, it's completely up to you if you ever click any of these buttons right here. In a 2nd grade classroom, maybe you aren't going to put the total number of points for that assignment in there, and you don't have to. You can just leave it open or tell the children not to pay attention to that. It's up to you. Don't feel like you have to check off every box and do everything that's available to you. Due date In a distance learning environment, it's probably really helpful to let them know when it's due. Feel free to put that in there. Item number 3 on the right-hand side, you don't have to put a topic in there if you don't want to. This is just an organizational strategy that can be used by you if you want to. If you want to organize all assignments by week, week 1, you can name that topic that specific week, so that as you have maybe 13, 20, 40 different assignments, whatever, all of those assignments are going to get tucked into that week, and it's easy for the students to know, aha, this is what's expected of me this week, and they can find it in that one spot. If you want to organize it by subject, maybe you have science as a topic, social studies, math, etc. That's up to you. You can leave it blank. It's optional. You can choose if you want the topics to be in there. Down here on the left, I'm showing you the different types of resources that can be added to Google Classroom. So you have 4 different buttons. The first one is an attachment from your computer. Maybe it's a JPEG file. Maybe it's a PDF. If you want to pull something directly from your computer, you're going to use that paperclip. The next item represents Google Drive. So let's say that you designed an assignment inside Google Docs or Google Slides or Google Sheets or Google Drawing. If you want to bring something in from Google, then you're going to choose the Google button so that you can search through Google Drive to find that. The third item is the YouTube button, where you would pull content from YouTube. You can search for YouTube content using that button. So maybe independent clauses or variables, linear equations, maybe a song about the 50 states that's in alphabetical order because you want your kids to sing that song. Whatever video you want to pull from, go ahead and locate it right there. And then the item on the far right is just going to be a web link. Maybe you want them to head over to Britannica, or you want them to look at Google Earth, or you want them to go to a specific website, then you would utilize that resource on the right-hand side in order to plug those resources in. Sometimes Google will update the way that different buttons look. So a lot of the buttons that I just showed you are going to be tucked into these spaces here. It might look a tiny bit different when you get in. It's okay. On the left-hand side where you see the paperclip, those 4 buttons that I just showed you are going to get tucked into that button right there. Google, within the last, I don't know, 6-9 months or so, maybe a year, what they did is they gave teachers the power to make resources right here in Google Classroom. Previously, we would have to design all that content and then come back to Google Classroom and then locate those resources. If you have an aha moment when you're in Google Classroom and you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I should design such and such. From this space right here, you can choose the Create button. After you choose the Create button, this drop-down menu will appear so that you can click on one of these. A new tab will open so that you can design that resource, and then you can come back here in order to finalize and finish that assignment for your students. About 18 months ago to a year ago, you could not give the students Microsoft resources and expect them to edit them online. I'm going to make the assumption that it's still the case. I know Google went through some massive updates and we now have the power to edit Microsoft resources very seamlessly inside Google Drive. But to err on the side of caution, I would recommend that if you expect the students to edit anything at home, please make it in Google. Google Drive, Google Slides, stick inside Google if you expect them to edit anything at home, just to minimize any confusion and you don't get all these emails. But it's not working, I don't know what to click. It's going to save you a lot of time and energy. On this next slide, on the right-hand side, we have the Assign button on the bottom right. It's muted in gray right now because I don't have a title and I don't have instructions and I don't have all these things in here. So that's why it's muted. If I had those things filled in, it would be blue and it would be ready to go for me to click on it. And then I could assign that assignment. I'm going to come back and talk about this button in a few slides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about these a little bit more to bring clarity to the discussion, and then I'll come back and explain this button a little bit more. And there's also a trash can right here. If you change your mind and you want to get rid of that assignment, you can always delete it. So what does it look like if I actually want to put something in the assignment from Google Drive? So in pink, I made a circle around the Google Drive button, and then on this right-hand side, I took a snapshot of my Google Drive. Inside Google Drive, you can either upload something if you need to, or you can go to Recent. I'm making the assumption that there's the possibility that it was something that you were recently making for the students. Not always, but it could be. If it's not recent, you also have this search box area where you can type in specific words. So if the students are working on missions, California missions, 4th grade, and you want them to do a Google slide presentation, but it was a presentation you worked on last year, then just type in words that are specific to that project in order to find that resource easily inside Google Drive. Then scan through the resources that you see here, click on the one resource or the two that you want to share with your students. I think you have to do it one at a time. And then after you've had a chance to click on that resource, then come down and click the Add button. Once you click the Add button, it will be dropped into Google Classroom for you. And then in pink, I drew a circle around where it says Students Can View File. In this step right here, if you make a mistake, you run the risk of having to go back in and delete the assignment. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. I have made mistakes in this space before. I have had to go back in and delete the assignment and then put the assignment in all over again. We're all human. We're going to make this mistake. It's okay. There's a little drop down button. Let me go ahead and circle it right here. There's a little, does my arrow show up on your screen? I'm assuming it does when I'm doing it. Okay, good, thank you. This little drop down menu, this button right here will produce this item over here, which gives you 3 options. And when I say this step, this is the step that I'm talking about. If you make a mistake here, Google will not let you go in and edit the assignment. You have to delete it and start over. It might take 7 minutes. It's not the end of the world. But man, as teachers, sometimes it's inconveniencing, you know? We want to get it right the first time, don't we? And so if it breaks, if it doesn't work well, then we're modeling grace for the students. You know what, friends? I made a mistake. Let me go back in and fix that. And it's good for us as adults to model making mistakes for children. And it's not the end of the world. And we take slow breaths and we're like, oh, you know what, friends? Thanks for being so kind to me. And it just builds trust in that community. And they breathe and they're like, oh man, my teacher makes mistakes too. So 3 options right here. You have the option of providing your students with a view-only file. Maybe it's a student sample. You took the name off, you changed a few things, and you want them to see what that end product is going to look like. So they only have the opportunity to view it. You can have multiple files in there. Sample number 1 is teacher instructions. File number 2 is a student sample where they can see what the final product is going to look like. And then that 3rd item is the actual task that they're going to complete. They get their own file. And you can do those different things for each of those files. So sometimes you only want them to view the file. If that's the case, then choose that one. The one in the middle I don't like very much. Students can edit the file. You run the risk of 37 blessings going in and causing mass chaos on the same document at the same time. I haven't seen many situations where I've walked away and I'm like, you know what, as a teacher, I think that's a great idea. Let's all do something on the same thing. In some occasions it does, you know, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, that's fine, but not always. I don't want to say 99% of the time. Most of the time you want each child to have their own copy of that resource. Like you were handing out a piece of paper in the classroom, everyone gets their own copy. Most of the time that's probably what you're going to choose. Take a deep breath, make sure you've made the right decision in this space before you actually create that assignment. That's my word of caution. On to the next slide. In this next slide, I'm now going to show you the process of reusing an assignment. So last year, maybe you had a technology coach working elbow to elbow with you. Maybe they shared 9 different assignments with you, and you're saying to yourself, I really want to reuse some of that. Well, you have the ability to reuse that. Or any of the lessons that you taught last year, any of the lessons you taught the year before, you have the ability to reuse any of those, even if those classrooms are archived. So back when we were in classwork and we had access to the Create button, you're going to choose the Create button. Then you're going to come down to Reuse Post. After you choose Reuse Post, you want to make sure that you select the right classroom. I have an arrow that's hard to see right here. If I needed to, I could click back in order to scan through the list of classrooms that I've worked in before. Choose whatever classroom has that specific assignment. Scoot your eyes up and down until you find that one assignment that you absolutely want to do all over again. Click on that assignment, come over to the Reuse button right here, and then click Reuse. You can tweak, adjust, or modify the assignment. If you want to add more resources, if you want to change the wording in the instructions or give it a new title, you do have the power to make those modifications prior to actually making that assignment live for your students. So that's what it looks like to reuse a post. I won't have time to go through this next piece, so I have it in video form for you so that you can watch it later on your own. 2 options: either go to Melissa Culver YouTube and look for the one that has the surfboard, or if you want to take your phone out and take a picture of that YouTube link, that's fine too. The purpose of this video that you're not going to watch live right now is, what if my administrator says I need to share my classroom with my administrator? Oh, how do I do that? This video is going to walk you through the process of sharing that video with your administrator. Earlier, when I mentioned that one 5th grade teacher has access to all 5th grades, if you want to share your Google Classroom with your colleagues and the whole grade level has 3 completely independent Google Classrooms, but you're all co-teachers in those spaces, then you have the ability to do this where you can share with each other. Another situation, let's pretend that there are 3 1st grade teachers on a specific campus, and they really want to share stuff with each other, but they don't want to be co-teachers. You can create like this sample classroom where you make a copy of every assignment that you do, and then you can pull from somebody else's really hard work and then grab that assignment and then plop it into your own Google Classroom. If the words that I'm saying don't make sense to you, that's okay. In the video, it will make more sense. I model what that looks like, and I show you step by step how to make those things happen. And on to the next slide. So sharing your Google Classroom, I'll give a little bit more insight right here. Basically, that's kind of a summary of what I just said. One thing I didn't highlight is the idea of an instructional aid, or if you have combo support. Additionally, if you have a student teacher, and that student teacher is going to work elbow to elbow with you this year because they need credit in order to complete their collegiate experience, it's up to you if you want to share that Google Classroom space with them. Usually that only works when they have Clovis Unified credentials, because they have to have a Clovis Unified email in order to make that work. If they aren't on the sub list, if they don't have access to a Clovis Unified email address, then that would not be an option. They wouldn't have the ability to share that space with you. On to the next slide. This is where I said I was going to come back to that assign button. You have 3 options. You can assign it right now and make it live. You can schedule it so that it goes live on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, because sometimes you're going to have sweet blessings that are going to come in and they're going to do the assignment before you've had a chance to dialogue with the students about it, and you don't want them to get ahead of your lessons and then have to redo it. You can schedule it. It can go live when you want it to go live. And then thirdly, you also have the ability to choose save it as a draft. You have 70% of it well-tailored, organized, and ready to go, but there's just 30% where you just need to think about it some more, get some more resources in place before you actually make that assignment go live. So you have those 3 options when you are trying to create or design an assignment. So let's pretend that you have something in draft mode and you have changed your mind. You want to go back in and you want to edit it. this is what it would look like for you to head into that classwork space. And this is where you could go in and edit or delete those assignments. You would click on the skinny snowman, the drop-down menu would appear, and then you would make those choices. On the screen right here, you'll notice how this is raspberry in color right here, and you'll notice how this is gray. That's a good indication. It's a good marker to let you know that the gray or muted one is in draft mode. So visually, you can easily discover which ones are live and available to the students and which ones are not live and available to the students. So the next natural question is, how do my students get in? It's nice that I made this Google Classroom, but in a distance learning environment, how do I expect the students to be able to get in? How do I expect a second grader to get in? How do I expect a student who's new to Clovis Unified to get in? How do I help these families get in? So this is the next portion where I explain in detail how to get the kids in. Normally, in a traditional classroom setting, I would work with the students in the tech lab and I would escort them through step by step and give them the teacher code. I have a video in a few slides that you can share either on your website or in a parent welcome letter, what it looks like to get into Google Classroom. So you'll have access to that a few slides from now. So we're starting off the year in a distance learning environment, and so we're going to be able to do this via video instead. But let me walk you through the process. How do I get my class code? How do I share that with my students? On the next slide over here, I scribbled it out so that you wouldn't go into somebody else's Google Classroom, but right underneath the name of your classroom is where you're going to find that class code. And then immediately to the right of where that class code should be located, you'll find this broken square right here. If you click on the broken square, it will actually pop that classroom code up larger so it's easier for you to see. If you were physically in the classroom walking the children through this process, you can click this broken square and then the code's going to go full screen. So it's really easy for the kids in the back of the classroom to be able to see that code. The code stays the same the entire school year. No one needs to memorize it. They plug it in one time and they are a part of your classroom for the rest of the school year. Nobody has to memorize that magic code. All right, when it's time for the students to get in, they are going to go to Clever, and then after Clever, they're going to go to Google Drive. I have a video that's going to come up. It'll walk you through, but just verbally now, the students are going to go to Clever. They're going to click on Google Drive. Some of you are taking notes, I can see, so that's why I'm speaking as slowly as I am. After they click on Google Drive, they're going to click on the waffle, like I mentioned earlier, the same one that we clicked on in order to get into Google Classroom. In the drop-down menu, same drop-down menu that you saw earlier, the students are going to click on Classroom. So once they officially get to Google Classroom, they are going to see the plus symbol on that top right-hand side. After they see the symbol, the plus symbol on the top right-hand side, they're going to join a class. They're not going to create a class. There's security protocol in place. They don't have the ability to create a class, don't worry. It might say create a class, but they don't have the ability to do that. So join Classroom. And then right here, they're going to get a pop-up window where that same magic code, the same classroom code that we talked about a few slides ago, the one that's very special to your classroom, they're going to type that in that space, and then they're going to click join. And then instantly on your end, all of those students are going to magically populate in your classroom. For my little kids, this might take 30 minutes inside the tech lab. For the older students, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, they've probably been doing this for a couple years. Junior high, high school, they should know this by now. Unless they're brand new to Google Classroom and their last district didn't use Google, a video would be helpful for them. So here's the video that I promised. I would drop this video into my website. I would also provide the link in a PDF in an introductory parent letter. And if it's a PDF, the parents can click on the link in that PDF that they receive through Q mass email. Parent Connect, I would send that out as an introductory letter. I have a pending YouTube video that's not finalized yet that gives my suggestion on an introductory parent letter and what it could look like. I also have a template. Email me if you want it. If you don't get it fast enough, I can send that out to you. This video, let me be honest with you, I'll pause. You're not going to drop this video into Google Classroom. Friends, you're teaching them how to get to Google Classroom. They don't need to know how to get to Google Classroom once they've gotten there. You need to tuck this into a space that's not in Google Classroom because they need to know how to get to Google Classroom. So find an alternative space that isn't Google Classroom and share this video with your parents and with your students. And then I walk them through step by step how to get into Google Classroom. All right, so what does it look like for the students to get to Clever? I mentioned this earlier in verbal form, but here we are with the visual resources to back it up. They're going to go to clever.cusd.com on a home device, on an iPad, on a cell phone, on a computer, on a device that's provided by Clovis Unified. They're going to go to Clever. Some devices are going to have a Chrome extension on the right-hand side. That little blue box is also a resource that could get them to Clever as well. Either one of those are sufficient. When they get to Clever, it's going to look like this. They're going to click on the box in the middle of the screen in order to officially get into Google Classroom. In order to get to Clever, sorry, I misspoke. Once they get there, they're going to click on Google Drive. I always tell the children it's the big rainbow colored G. Click on the big rainbow colored G, and underneath it, it says Drive. And then as a resource, I tell the kids, don't we have to drive to school? We have to get there somewhere, somehow. It might be a scooter, you might be walking, you could be in mom's car or the bus, but we have to get there somehow. So then I say, we're gonna drive to school. You notice I work with small children. If they're brand new to Google Drive, they're going to have a pop-up that looks like this. They're going to click on the X on the top right in order to get rid of it. If they've never been in Google Drive, they're also going to have a long page of legal jargon. Scoot to the bottom, click I accept the policies. And then on the right-hand side, this is the Google Apps menu, if you really want to call it by the right thing. You have the waffle, and then you have Google Classroom. Now, you may or may not know this, these apps are movable. You can actually click on this and then drag it wherever you want to, and these can reassemble themselves in different locations. If that's important to you, move them around wherever you want to. But they would click on Google Classroom right there. If they're brand new to Google Classroom, it's going to ask that they verify who they are. Have them click on that continue button. My video walks them through everything I'm saying right now. If they're brand new, they're a student, so they're going to click student. The plus symbol is located over here on the right-hand side. That drop-down menu appears. When that drop-down menu appears, that's where they tuck that classroom code in and then click join. The waffle on the left-hand side allows students to navigate between their classrooms. If your students at your site are instructed to have a music classroom, in addition to their third grade classroom, then they would navigate between those two classrooms easily on that space over there. Or for your junior high and high school students who are navigating multiple periods, they can use that waffle over on the left to navigate between classrooms. If any of your students email you and say, Google Classroom isn't working, I keep clicking on it, it's not working, it's not working, they actually have to click on the white letters of your name in order to get into the classroom. It's a little persnickety, I know. They have to click on the white letters of the name of your classroom in order to get in. So as a troubleshooting measure, if they declare that it's broken and it doesn't work, ask them if that's the reason why they can't get in. So navigating through what we've gone through so far, we designed a Google Classroom. Our students are now in. You have created an assignment in theory, we're pretending. Now, all your sweet blessings are finishing those assignments and they're coming back to you. Now, what do you do? This is where you grade those assignments. You have an opportunity to see the work that they have done. You have access to providing them feedback and grading that material. As with any classroom, we're not going to attribute a grade for absolutely everything. Some of it is just practice. Don't feel like you have to grade absolutely everything that they do in Google Classroom. You don't. Another thing, you can double grade assignments. If you want to give an elementary school student a history grade and an ELA grade for the same assignment, you can. Because your site administrator is probably going to tell you to embed science and social studies into the ELA curriculum, you don't have to navigate, oh, this one's going to get a science grade, this one's going to get an ELA grade. No, you can do science and ELA content in that same assignment. It's up to you. So how do we get to those resources? There are at least 2 ways. There's more, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. In order to find student material that they have finished, right here in Google Classroom, when you're in Google Classroom and you see that mini tile that has the name of the classroom, you have all 37 students in there, right here, there's a folder, and this works only for the teacher. You can click on that folder in order to open student work so that you can view what they've had a chance to do. Here's one more location that will give you access to student work. I think actually I take that back. I show you 3. On my next slide, I'll show you a 3rd spot. Inside classwork, the class drive folder for this singular classroom will always be located right here, and you can click on that folder in order to access student work. A 3rd way that you can get into student work is that you can actually click directly on the assignment. When you click directly on the assignment, you will see something that looks similar to this. I went through and I muted out student names for privacy purposes. Wherever you see a gray box, it's a child's name. On the left-hand side over here, the students' names will appear. If you choose to put grades in this space, you can. Don't feel obligated to put grades in 2 different locations if you don't want to. Do what works for you. So you can put grades in this space if you want to. Right here, it shows how many students turned it in and how many students specifically have not finished this assignment yet. So there's 28 more students that need to turn it in. It doesn't matter if they turn it in or not. You have access to their work 100% of the time. If you have an essay due on Friday and you want to go in just kind of as a helicopter teacher on Wednesday to see what that student progress is, to evaluate how many emails you need to send out during the week, like, oh, you know, Tabitha still has several paragraphs to go on this essay, just wanted to give you some feedback along the way. You still have access to that student work even if it isn't turned in. Just wanted to let you know that. And you'll notice that I'm in the student work area. So if I were to click on instructions, I wouldn't have the data that I see on the screen. I would see something different. Right down here, it says turned in. Right down here, it says missing. So as a visual snapshot, I can see who turned it in and who didn't. From here, I can click directly on that student work and get directly into that child's assignment to see how they are doing. I also have the ability over here on the left to sort by status. And if I want to sort by status, I have 3 different filtering options just to easily grab the data that I think is most important at that time. I'm going to scoot over one more slide. I know I've got 9 more slides left and we've got 14 minutes. I want to try to leave 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. So right here, I'm modeling what it looks like to where it shows the student's name in this specific region. Over here, I'm highlighting all over again the idea of turned in or missing without some of the cluttered bits that I had a second ago. Here's what it looks like when I'm inside a Google Slide assignment. I have clicked on the assignment for one specific student. I have access to all of that, all of the slides that child designed over here on the left. And I'm just showcasing how I was able to click on one specific student to access this specific one. Okay, which is what the, oh, no. let me take that back. The reason why I have this large box right here is because I'm showing you that right here in this gray area is where I have a drop-down menu where I can easily move from student to student. So right here, we're going to say James Smith as our student. If I click right here where it says James Smith, for example, then I'm going to have this drop-down menu that appears, and I can click, 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 click through each of the students. On my next slide, I'll show you another way that I can get from student to student. So I made that big box disappear, and then I have two arrows right here. So I can seamlessly move to the next example, the next example, the next example. That way I can see everyone's Google Slide assignments and then provide them with the necessary feedback that they need. If I want this project to open up right over here on the right-hand side, I can open up this singular project in a new tab. So let me switch slides. I'm going to move over one. I mentioned along the left down here how I have the ability to click, click, click on each of these slides to get more data on how that student completed the assignment. Right here, I can open the project in another tab. If for some reason I wanted to use a student sample as a teaching instrument in Zoom, if I had permission from that student, I could open up their project using this button right here, and in Zoom I can say, James Smith gave me permission to show you his sample, and I just wanted to celebrate some of the excellent things that he did. He incorporated my feedback, he paid attention to the instructions, he did an excellent job. You can praise that student in that classroom experience, but also use that sample as a teaching instrument to help other students know what that superior student sample is going to look like. I've used that in the past before in a distance learning environment. Depending on your students, it might not be a good idea, because if they open up the same project at the same time and then they want to just throw in some stuff so that way the whole class can see this cute joke that they found or this video or what have you, if you can grab a sample from a student from last year, that might be a better teaching strategy in a distance learning environment. But nonetheless, you still have access to student work in order to use it as a teaching sample. If you want to put a grade here, if you want to put a private comment here, and then you can post it, those are resources that you have available to you. Another shaping feedback instrument. In Hattie's research, we found, Dr. Hattie, we found his research concluded that direct, effective teacher feedback is the #1 instrument that catapults student to success more than any other teaching strategy. So, one suggestion, every once in a while, whatever's reasonable, go ahead and go in and provide specific feedback to students where appropriate. Now, the sample that I'm providing is Google Slides, but you can do this in all other Google products as well. If you want to do this in Google Docs, hey, your thesis is off to a great start, you just need a little bit more clarity. Or your conclusion is off to a great start, I just need you to swing back up to that thesis and wrap up these ideas, help your reader wrap up those thoughts. So whatever your feedback is. Melissa, you said a lot. How do I do that? Over here, inside Google Slides, when I'm looking at that student work, I have this button right here. This is the comment button, and I made it larger right here for you to see. When you click that, you have a box that shows up with your name on it. You can type whatever feedback you want into there and then click the comment button. And right there, immediately at that specific spot, that child will receive live feedback letting them know how they're doing. If all of your students are working on an essay from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and you want to go in and you want to let your students know, hey, from 1 to 2, I'm providing live feedback, that's another resource available to you. They get that instant feedback, they can correct those errors, and then move on with success criteria. On the top right-hand corner, once you've provided any feedback, if you want to return it to the student, there is a return button up there. They have access to your feedback no matter what. The return button is optional. Do what works well for you. That is technically the bulk of my presentation. The very next slide shows you that PowerPoint link all over again. That way, if you didn't grab it earlier and you're like, wow, okay, I want to go back and look at this. This was a lot of material. That URL is going to take you to my entire presentation all over again. Again, the video will not be available until next week. But those videos that I tucked in there, I have 3 videos. You can go back and watch those videos. What does it look like for the students to get in? What does it look like at the beginning of the year? And then how do I collaborate and share my classroom with other teachers? We're going to scoot over into that Q&A space. So down on that bottom menu, if you scoot your mouse down, you'll find that chat box. And then Judy Bauer, if you want to hop out, if you want to use your microphone, it doesn't matter either way. I didn't see any questions come throughout the process.
We had 3 that that weren't answered during your presentation. One was, is there a PDF step-by-step of the Google Classroom? Another one is in high school. Students are coming in and out that first couple of weeks pretty fluidly. Is there an easy way to add and delete students? And then the third one is, what is the best way to get grades from Google Classroom into Zangle?
Okay, number 1 was PDF. I do not know if there is a step-by-step PDF available. I know that Clovis Unified has the technology help for students, but we also have a specific website that provides technology support for teachers. And that specific web link, let me see if I can bring that up and then slide my screen over. That specific, if we do, that specific web link is going to provide those resources if we have it. So the tech information for staff, I'll try, once this web link pops up, then I'll slide it over. Even though it's not popped up yet, I'll slide it over. So tech.cusd.com/staff resources. I don't know how to make that any larger on my screen. I'm so sorry. This particular resource right here, if we have a PDF walking through all of my instructions step by step, someone may have designed one, but off the top of my head, not so much. The fluidity of high school may have been the 3rd question. What was the 2nd question?
No, that was the 2nd question.
Oh, the fluidity of, go ahead.
They were just asking how easy it is to add and delete students because at the beginning of the school year, you know, students are coming and going pretty fluidly.
Yeah. Let me scoot another screen over. This is a practice space that I use for Google Classroom over here. I did not mention the idea of accessing your students using this People tab right here. So up at the top, if you click People, then all of your students would populate here. So this is just a practice space. I don't have students. And then on that right-hand side, you have the ability to email students. It would go to their Gmail. And then over here, if you wanted to delete someone, you're going to click inside the box. And then for actions, then you would remove any of the students that need to come out of your classroom. And then as far as adding them is concerned, one suggestion is just to provide them with that Google Classroom code and they can add themselves. I personally have never emailed the students with the classroom code. They'd have to be in there in order to have the classroom code. From your staff email, if you wanted to email those students directly or mass email and then select specific students, hi, welcome to my classroom. I'm so glad you're here. Let me share the Google Classroom code with you. Here's a few PDFs to share with you, etc. Then you can share that information with them directly through their email, as long as they're checking their Clovis Unified email. And then 3rd question?
Best way to get grades into Zangle.
One of the last websites that I shared over here, I don't know if it's in the Google Classroom area or if it's down here in Q. There's a lot in Q for instructions. I know Sherry Johnston did a fantastic job of sharing that information via mass email. If you're the person asking that question, go ahead and email me directly. That way I can give you that information and you won't have to comb through this document over here. I know that that information has been updating over the last couple of weeks. I received an email. I definitely have access to that document. Email me and then I'll send it to you.
Okay, and the next question I have is there a video for organizing resources and materials?
Inside my YouTube channel, I can't remember if I made it a video or not. I think I might have 93 videos in there. At one point in time, I have brainstormed the idea of forming what's called a test classroom. And that's just a tool that I use for organizational purposes, because over the course of 10, 15 years, 20 years, we've only had Google Classroom for 5 years, believe it or not. But exponentially, year after year, you're going to have a lot of lessons to look back on, and it's going to be easy to lose where those are located. As an instructional technology coach, I usually have 60 Google Classrooms running at one time. I may have archived some of them. But down on the bottom, I have what's called a test class. And this is a resource that I use just to keep things organized so that I can reuse them seamlessly. In my classwork area, I was able to create topics, which I didn't share in my session. Right here where it says topic, this is where you can choose a topic for each week. I mentioned it, but I didn't model it. In my Google Classroom here, I have grades 01/02. I could also say week 1, and then I can include August 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, which would be August 21, and then add, and then that topic over here is going to show up here. And then I can reuse assignments in this space if I need to, or classify them or organize them. And you can actually literally just drag and then drop assignments into those different assignment areas. The organizational strategy that I need is by grade level, but for other teachers, they might need them by subject area. So as you're brainstorming 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks from now, and you're like, oh, I have a great idea for an assignment that's going to come there, but I can't share it with the kids yet. If a strategy like this is helpful for you, then you can begin putting those assignments in here, or sharing as a collaborative group. As people share resources with you, you can tuck them into a resource like this, so you can seamlessly share those resources out at just the right time. Any other questions?
Not so far.
All right. I want to be respectful for your time, of your time rather. If you need to get a hold of me, my email address is here. Feel free to email me. If there are characteristics of my presentation and you're like, oh man, maybe next time you can do this, or if you were just thankful for the presentation, you're more than welcome to just pop a little email in that says, hey, thanks for your time. Website is available there. YouTube channel, you can click on that to easily find it. The first slides at the very beginning came from Slides Mania. I want to make sure that I'm thankful to them for their hard work. Whenever I can give credit where credit is due, I want to make sure that I point that direction. You are a phenomenal group of educators, and I am thankful for the time that you took out of your day to come to this presentation. I have a feeling you're going to have an amazing year. If you need to head out, feel free to do so. If you have a couple last-minute questions, you're more than welcome to stay and ask those. Have a great day, team.
Oops. Melissa, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So the tech CUSD staff resources, it just took me to the employee quick links. That, like, you know, the one that has all of the different resources for us, like the EES. Is that the correct one, or did I am I missing something on it? The tech.cusd.
You know what I didn't type in was the number Q.
With
You
the
see
what?
that at the end?
It has a number. It has Q at the end after the slash.
Number sign and then capital Q.
Oh, let me.
Try that.
Okay. Number sign in capital Q. All right. And then my question you might be able to even answer is just my biggest problem I had was getting kids to actually turn in their assignments. So they would finish the assignments, but when I look on the page, it would say incomplete, incomplete, incomplete. And I mean, it's fine because I know that I could go in there and I could physically look, but because we do kind of a rotation thing, I had 110 kids and it was very time consuming. And I wanted them to be able to actually turn in their assignments so that I could see that it was complete and then just go through the grading. But I didn't know how to tell them how to do that. I didn't know what they were supposed to do exactly.
Yes, good question. Teachers don't have access to the student view. And sometimes when we're in that teaching session and we're telling them to do something, I usually apologize to the kids and I'm like, I'm the teacher, so mine's going to look different from yours. And then I have to draw pictures on the whiteboard and explain to them what it's going to look like. In this space right here, I'm actually assigned as a student. So I have the ability to go in and show the students live what it's actually going to look like on their end. So as a student, if I click right here, I actually have the ability to create an assignment of my own right here. You, the teacher, can provide them with an assignment, but if you choose not to, the children can make a Google document on their own right here and then go into it. At the high school level, you don't always have to create that template or provide that for them. They can actually go through the process of creating that document live on their own from their space, and then they can go in and work on that assignment. The other item is the turn-in button for the students is located right here. Google is going to ask them, are you sure you want to turn it in? And then you're going to, and they on their end will click the turn-in button to officially turn it in.
Okay, so on theirs, then it does show it right underneath their assignment.
Right.
Okay, and I see, and that was, I didn't know, so because I didn't know how to tell them to do it, because I didn't know where it was, because it looked different. So
Yes.
super cool. Okay, all right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.